Hello, welcome to PODnas. This is a Southern sports show with a little bit of Cajun flair. I'm Daniel Hawks. That's Jared Roser. We are struggling through this Monday, but we are here. Week 7 of college football is done. I am struggling through this Monday.
Yeah, I was about to hit you with like an Uncle Phil. Because I'm doing great. I think 5 cups of coffee in, but it hasn't quite hit me into that weird shaky zone yet. But you're over here. We're a minute 30 into recording at one point, and you go weeks on me and vomiting in the middle of the game, back-to-back games. I don't know what the hell's going on up there, but yeah, we're doing fine here.
Listen, I love football so much, and I just celebrated football in all its glory yesterday. So let's talk about some sports. Week 7, college football in the books. A lot of stuff happened this weekend, a lot of stuff to go over. Let's just jump right into this LSU South Carolina game. LSU pulls off a victory in Death Valley. A game which kind of seemed like they controlled the entire game. It never really felt like they weren't in the driver's seat of this game at all. But were you there? Were you live in person? How was it? Because I had to have the sound on for the Cubs getting bounced from the playoffs. So I was only able to have one small TV in my bar in Chicago, in the corner where I was able to check it out. So kind of tell me what your thoughts about this game and how you think the LSU kind of team looked and how they're feeling coming out of this.
And I was the reverse of that. I was in Tiger Stadium watching, but I had in the corner of my laptop screen watching the Cubs not be able to score any runs up in Milwaukee, and disappointing end to their season. But I mean, the takeaways in Tiger Stadium were it was an ugly grind, a lot of missed opportunities. I know Brian Kelly's stance coming out was essentially that he felt like they controlled the flow of the game, and that if they can just clean up a couple of mistakes, that he likes the trajectory of where the team is. He thought they bounced back and showed some encouraging signs in certain areas. He liked some of what he saw in terms of some run blocking and establishing the run game more so than what they had in recent weeks. The defense remains stellar. Trey'Dez Green looks like he's trending back toward full health. And I think you saw some flashes from Garrett Nussmeier of some of the big playability, the confidence, a little bit more zip on the ball in spots. But for him, it was kind of an up and down experience as well. But at the end of the day, man, if you don't turn the ball over twice on the goal line, if you can turn 3 different trips inside the 10-yard line to more than 3 points, there were positives to take away from them moving the ball a little bit more effectively, more consistently after those first couple of possessions. They've got to clean up those miscues now and cash in on the ends of some of those drives.
Now, one thing that did happen over the weekend was Penn State fired James Franklin. I started seeing some reports just today about Brian Kelly being linked to that job. Was that brought up in the presser today, or is that just kind of some wild stuff that the internet tends to do?
That's the internet. Cool. Yeah, I don't know that there's going to be a whole lot of credence put into that in real life. There are other names that are tied to that Penn State job that, while there is some, Northeastern or Midwestern connection for Brian Kelly that makes some sense. And as much as we now cycle back to that whole culture word that came up when he was hired, the culture fit would obviously make sense for the folks that want to talk about that sort of stuff. But when you look at like what Kurt Cignetti's doing, the Matt Rule connection as a former Penn State linebacker, and some of the other options there, I think there are probably going to be higher pecking order candidates for Penn State. And I think for Brian Kelly, he's got a team right now that is in the thick of right now they're competing at a higher level and have a better chance of making the playoffs, obviously, than Penn State, that's fallen off the last 3 weeks. And so Penn State owing a lot of money, obviously, to James Franklin right now. There being a lot of money involved to try and pry Brian Kelly away from LSU if someone were to do it. I just don't think that the variables fall into place for that.
Cool. I needed to check with someone who is in Baton Rouge, because I'm just seeing stuff pop up on my timeline, and I'm like, what? Why? Because to me, it feels like a Brian Kelly going to Penn State doesn't feel like it feels lateral. From the ceiling that you can kind of have at each program. Maybe culture fit is probably the one thing up that maybe Penn State has. Because I do just feel like even though Brian Kelly has done a good job as the LSU head coach, it doesn't really feel like it's a fit. And from the press conference shenanigans, it feels, and I've always felt this way. And we can just curse jar this, but yeah, I feel like Brian Kelly's a cheat, and
Jesus. Yeah, let's put that out there.
And but he wins. I do not feel like it's a really good fit, but that's just me. That's my own kind of thing. Things that he does just make me queasy at points. But if he beats Alabama and wins football games, then I'm willing to give a lot of grace there with that. But some of the stuff, I'm just like, come on, man, what are you doing? From yelling at the reporter to the weird Pulp Fiction and TikTok to the kid immediately decommitting. I get the ick from Brian Kelly a lot. It's like someone that you date for a really long time and you're like, do I love you? I still care about you? I mean, I guess this is nice, but sure.
So one point of clarity, and it's pretty tangential. It doesn't really affect any of your major point, but Danny Lewis wasn't committed to LSU. He was just someone that LSU was recruiting, the former Westgate tight end that ended up at Alabama. What I do want to harp on briefly before we get back to the game, though, is what you're saying is Brian Kelly reminds you of people you've dated. It's just let's pull that all out and water it down to exactly the key piece of all of this.
And there are only 3, so so you can get real specific if you want. No. Shouts to everyone that I dated. They had to put up with a lot more. And I'm sure that was on their end, and I'm just projecting. So no, I just don't feel like it's a good fit. It never has really felt like a good fit, and he's a good football coach. I like I said, that culture thing doesn't fit. So when I did see the Penn State thing, I was like,
yeah,
the meme. Yeah.
I think there's going to be frustration and vocal disagreement with and disapproval from whichever segment of the fan base it is. It'll be like a musical chair situation where a group is going to be loud and upset with the football coach regardless.
Yeah.
Unless you're literally moments removed from winning the national championship. But the entire 2019 season, there were segments of the fan base that were up in arms at different stretches of that, in October, man, why can't this defense get it together? They're going to cost us this, and like all these different things. And so people are going to be salty and loud regardless. And I think, while I also have some questions, criticisms, whatever, and we talk about them sometimes on the show of instances in which I maybe view things could have gone a little bit differently or been handled a little bit differently for Brian Kelly, I think he's done a better job on the whole than what a lot of the fan base right now wants to give him credit for, considering the circumstances he came into with a really depleted program, which is something we talked about a lot over the last couple of years as well. But
for how much love Coach O gets, he left the LSU program in shambles. Just no way around that. So anyway, LSU gets a win.
I'm not ready to move off the game to go into the other games.
I'm gonna say LSU gets a win. Let's talk about more stuff on the field. And not Lane Kiffin's daughter being in the stands for the game. So to watch Witt, who did great. What else would you like to hit on this? Because one thing that I did kind of want to hit on is we actually saw some signs of life in this running game. And that was really, really nice to see. Caden Durham with 70 yards, Juwan Johnson with 66 yards with a really long 56-yard run. Even Garrett had about 30 yards rushing. That was, I think this is to date LSU's best rushing game of the year by far. And so seeing a team that has barely been able to get over 100 total yards rushing, rack up 168 yards on the ground was super nice to see, and maybe a sign of life for this LSU schedule that gets increasingly harder as the weeks go on.
100%. This isn't A&M, this isn't Alabama, et cetera, but it's a a solid team on a national scale in South Carolina, and you saw, to use your term, more signs of life from that LSU running game in particular than what we had seen. This was easily their biggest rushing yardage total of the season, and their best total offensive performance in terms of yardage against an FBS opponent. At least they had more against Southeastern, and you could see early on the commitment to the run game. It was 4 of the first 5 plays were runs, and then despite the fact that that wasn't going well, they didn't stray away from it entirely, came back to it enough that they were able to pop some of those bigger runs. The 23-yarder for Caden, the 56-yarder for Jawan. And so, again, there were signs of progress moving the ball essentially between like the 5 and the 5, if you can just cash in those goal line opportunities, which I think are correctable mistakes, as Brian Kelly's pointed out. Jawan Johnson's not going to fumble the ball a whole hell of a lot, and he's going to learn from that situation. Also, quite frankly, don't know that the ball wasn't across the goal line by the time it came loose.
Over. Yeah.
And for Nuss too, who's been such a storyline for all of this, I think, okay, we see the run game, and we see the ways that can help take some pressure off of him in some spots. And it wasn't pretty all the time for him on Saturday. It hasn't been pretty all the time for him this season, and he would be the first to acknowledge all of that. But at the same time, it's kind of wild, going back to some of the fan reaction dynamics to Brian Kelly, how much of the fan base is so hostile toward Nussmeier right now as he guts through a torso injury and is still putting up numbers that, I mean, dude, not that long ago, quite frankly, like 6 years ago, 7 years ago, people would have been selling their souls for the numbers that he's putting up right now. And he's still doing that despite battling through an injury.
One Joe Burrow and one Jaden Daniels, and everyone loses their mind.
And all of a sudden, a guy that, I think coming out of the weekend is like 6th in the SEC, 5th or 6th in the SEC in passing yardage, is someone that they're ready to throw under the bus and move on from. And we got to give Van Buren a chance. This isn't cutting it, and so on and so forth.
That's ridiculous. Anyone who's saying that, you're ridiculous.
Yeah. I mean, hey, back to it. That's the internet. People on the internet are out of pocket. And again, it hasn't been great. It hasn't been what we expected from Nussmeier this year. It hasn't been what Nuss expected from himself this year, but it hasn't been as bad as what people have made it out to be, particularly when you consider that he is out there grinding his way through an injury. And now, as you're starting to see some of these flashes of him having some confidence to throw the ball down the field, him having some zip on some passes, like a sideline throw to Caden Durham, and I think it was early in the fourth quarter, that after watching the last few weeks of Nuss, I don't know. I didn't know as he released it how the hell it was going to get there, but it got through 2 leaping defenders on the sideline for a big, moving of the change. And so he's got to clean up some miscues. He's still getting into his flow and everything, but you saw some signs, at least, to build upon that were encouraging.
And if this LSU ground game can stay consistent, it's only going to help. I mean, it's only going to make things better for this LSU offense and this LSU team. When Nussmeier doesn't have to play Superman, which we've said on this show before. So I thought it was super encouraging because I honestly did feel like this was going to be a trap game and that they were going to lose. And I'm really glad I switched my pick at the last minute, but I really, really felt like this could be a game where this LSU team doesn't come out. I think, honestly, having that bye after a loss was super duper helpful for this thing to not snowball out of control and get a little bit out of hand with this LSU team's remaining schedule. So super happy with, the way watching this team come out and kind of gut through and win this performance. I wouldn't say they looked like the best team in the SEC on Saturday by any stretch, but they did what they needed to do, and they went in on Saturday night and they got a W.
Yeah, they didn't look like the best team in the SEC, but they looked like the best team on the field for the vast majority of that game. And the bye helped in terms of just a season flow dynamic, as you mentioned, getting a chance to regroup after the loss. It helped them heal up in some spots, including Tradez, who said Saturday with, I think it was 8 catches for 119 on a touchdown, that he felt like he was still only 80%. He still had his knee brace on and all those things. But he said 2 weeks ago against Ole Miss, he wasn't even able to cut out there and whatnot. And so him being 80%, he felt like was a huge step up from where he was a couple weeks ago. And that was another huge point of encouragement for a team that has struggled to convert in the red zone, has struggled to convert on third downs. Suddenly you've got a 6'7", 240 basketball athlete out there that can box out and make plays in the air. And you saw it pan out for a touchdown and a huge third down conversion. And so if that's the trending, trajectory for Tradez as a weapon in this offense, that's a huge help for some of the things that have ailed this offense overall. And if you can just build on this like they're hoping to, they don't think they're a finished product by any means, but if you can build on the strides you showed and take that up to Nashville and have a successful weekend, then you feel a lot better about having to face A&M, obviously, as not them, but we get ahead of ourselves a little bit and look at some of the big games ahead. If you can continue the direction you're heading, you feel better about how you can stack up.
Absolutely. 1000%. Let's move on to the next game. UL falls to James Madison. UL is up at halftime, 14-7, and then cannot score in the second half. Alonzo Barrett III threw 3 touchdown passes to Landon Ellis and James Madison. And I did not get to watch this game. I don't know if you saw any of it, but it just really feels like this is kind of the season from hell for this UL team. Which sucks because they were a super fun, frisky team last year, and the quarterback injury at the beginning of the year kind of just seemed like it's really derailed the Cajun season.
Yeah, it was. I watched the vast majority of that game, was kind of cycling, mostly watching that, but flipping some to Alabama, Mizzou, and it was encouraging early. The defense was coming up with some big takeaways, had 3 early, and were giving that team a chance. Wasn't a whole lot of moving up and down the field for the offense, but there were a couple plays where Lunch was able to get the ball downfield to Rob Williams, had a big catch, long touchdown pass to Dale Martin. And so they were doing some things at points there once they got going in the first half, but then, couldn't really sustain it. We talked about the need for the running backs to have a great day. I don't know what Bill ended up with, but I found out Friday night or Thursday or Friday night or whatever it was after we had recorded, Zylan Perry had been banged up, and so he wasn't going to be available. That stings, just adding to the injury bug that has continued to plague this team this season and then really for the last several years. The positive news, I guess, is, well, one, as we mentioned early in the season, I don't think this team is giving up on anything. They've got a lot of fight to them as well. And then I saw Monday, shortly before we hopped on to record this, Dawson Iserloh from ESPN Southwest Louisiana out there reporting, coming out of Dez's Monday presser, that it looks like they're thinking Walker Howard may be returning to practice. And so,
that's awesome.
That wasn't something that we were necessarily expecting this quickly, but if he can get in there and provide a jolt to this offense, that's, a nice positive development. Still a long way to go for the team as a whole, but just some news to kind of pass on.
I mean, anything to kind of give them a spark, I feel like is kind of what this Cajun team needs. And maybe Walker Howard coming back could be that spark. Still a chance for them to turn this thing around and maybe get themselves to a bowl game.
Yep.
All right. Next up, ULM loses to Coastal Carolina 28-3. ULM only scores once in the third quarter. Didn't look great. Where does this ULM team go after 2 back-to-back losses? One obviously to Northwestern, and now to Coastal Carolina. This one being a Sun Belt loss. They are 1-1 in the Sun Belt too. Again, a team that still has an opportunity to kind of turn this thing around. And this defense is such a good defense. I just wish they could get some offensive help from quarterback, rushing, receiving, anywhere to get an offensive spark would be great.
Yeah, it was a tough Saturday. I'm not going to get overly swung one way or the other in terms of where they are. We obviously picked them to go up there and win, and we're being kind of optimistic about that, but knew it wouldn't be anything to take for granted. And I think that's kind of where a lot of this Sun Belt is fairly tightly packed group of teams that can beat each other. And, Coastal is up there on James Madison's heels in the East Division at 2-1 in conference play. And so the two teams that the Cajuns and Warhawks had to deal with this season have been two of the leaders of the pack in that conference early on. And I never expected ULM was going to go out there and sweep its way through conference or anything along those lines. But it's just going to be kind of a week-to-week dynamic to see how some of these matchups fall, especially when you're probably not going to stretch out a lot of huge wins and going to have to, rely on the fact that you can win some turnover battles and do some things like that. So tough Saturday, but it doesn't really swing kind of where I feel ULM can be of just on that bubble of trying to secure a bowl game at the end of the season.
And that's what we're looking for. There was no thought on this show at all that, ULM or the Cajuns were going to be vying for that fifth spot in the playoff rankings. But it would be really nice to just kind of see these programs kind of come along, especially both of them having had their struggles. ULM, I feel like finally had turned the corner and was starting to make some progress. And they have, for sure. They absolutely have. But it's a long race, not a 100-meter dash. So you got to take it as it comes, and hopefully the Warhawks can bounce back from this.
For sure.
Yeah. All right. Let's real quick recap. You picked Oregon because you are not a smart person. I obviously am always right on my pick. So getting this one right was big.
Congratulations on your pick, on your week, your positive week here.
I was looking back at the records for each week, and you're like 6-1, 5-2, 6-1, 6-1, 6-1. I'm like 4-3, 3-4, 5-1, 6-2, 8-9. I'm just all over the place. So I need to take my pick. It's a long race. Okay. It's not a sprint.
Yeah.
One that you're still in the lead of. Both these teams are really good. I think both these teams make the playoffs from this Oregon Indiana game. If you have anything to say about it real quick, I did kind of want to touch on that next game, the Texas Oklahoma game with John Mateer coming back with Arch finally kind of Texas looking like the team that we thought they were going to be coming into the season. Where do you think this in the SEC, where would you put Texas?
Yeah. I don't have a whole lot to add to the Oregon Indiana thing, but we'll just say that this was the week that now I take Indiana far more seriously, obviously going out there and getting that win. And so credit to them. I will not doubt them much moving forward. I kind of put them in that second tier or whatever of the team. I didn't get a chance to watch a lot of that game, just a couple of drives here and there as I watched more of the Red River game and then was heading over to Tiger Stadium and whatnot. But Indiana has, and shout out to Signetti and what he has done with that program. It has a little bit of a swagger to it that is really fun to watch from a program that has not historically had much of that ever. The Texas and Oklahoma game, I think, not unlike some of what we were saying about the Sun Belt, but just at a different level. I think there are a lot of teams that can beat each other on a given Saturday, and I think Texas is in the thick of that, where LSU's ranked more highly, and there are things to like more about LSU, certainly. But if you played a 10-game season of Longhorns versus Tigers week in and week out, I don't know that it doesn't end up like a 5-5, 6-4 type split or something in that general middle of the road ballpark. Similarly to some of what we were saying about some LSU stuff and some of what we'd said about Arch and Texas in weeks past, I continue to think you're seeing steps and you're seeing some right direction dynamics. Huge win for the New Orleans native and that program. And, it wasn't always pretty. There were ups and downs. There were still throws where you wish he made it a little bit more quickly, or saw it a little bit more quickly, or he had it a little bit more on the money to give guys a chance to kind of catch and run or whatever the case may be. But, there was a stretch before I had to hit the road over to Tiger Stadium where I think he was like 9 of 10 on third downs with, over 10 yards a catch or over 10 yards a play on those third down plays or whatever it was. And so he was showing up in a big way against a good defense on a big stage when, they were in pivotal circumstances. And while it wasn't perfect, there's a lot of positive to take from that.
Absolutely. I think it was a good step in the right direction, because I think right now the man needs confidence, because I think that was sorely lacking the first, going up to Ohio State, who looks like the best team in the country. Is really, we're seeing now, unlike the Clemson win for LSU, that is such a tough game, and they're such a good team. So starting off your season like that, when it is really your first kind of dip into being the guy for Texas, was a really hard place to put. And I honestly do think it shook his confidence for those first couple of weeks. But it's good to see him coming back. Lastly, let's talk about this Patriots Saints game, because the Saints are just they're wily. I don't know. They're really hard out. That defense is still really good. It was really good to see Chase Young on the field. Spencer Rattler is not it at quarterback, but he's by no means, I think, a terrible quarterback. I think he's just a really good backup. So it was good to see the Saints like kind of compete on this with this emerging Pats team and Drake May, who looks great. It was awesome to see Booty have a couple really key catches and a touchdown. Will Campbell was protecting that blind side like like he knew how to do it, and his arms were regular's length. But it was a slog of a game because the offense misses so many opportunities. There are just a couple throws where Olave drops a huge pass. Spencer Rattler kind of throws a hospital ball when they could have, made a drive to tie this thing at the end of the game. They had an opportunity to go down and win the game, but they just couldn't convert. And it feels like that is kind of the story of the Saints team. And honestly, that is, what makes a really good NFL team really good, are those teams that can kind of capitalize on this point. Chiefs last year being 11-0 in one-score games, obviously getting the Super Bowl, losing there. Getting those, it's a game of inches. Getting those inches when needed is what makes a good team good, and what makes some of those poor teams, or with the poor record, bad. But not too much for me to say that. We kind of highlight every week that we're expecting a Saints loss, and that, except for the Seattle week, that, oh, look at that, they stuck in there for a bit. So
yeah, and I know you've got a hard out in about 10, and we still have high school plays of the week to get to, so I won't spend a whole lot of time on it either. But yeah, they're a team that we didn't expect to be very good, but they have been professional and a level of fight and toughness to be in all of those games but one, and have an early season win against a team in the Giants that a week later looks that much better after what they were able to accomplish this week. And so, the Saints are kind
who
of
we thought they were.
Who we thought they were in a lot of ways. And then Kayshawn to have, if not the best game of his career thus far, one of them, I think it was like 5 targets and caught all 5 and 90-something yards and 2 scores. And so that was cool to see for the former Westgate star, getting a chance to come home and play in the Superdome for the first time in his NFL career and have a big day. And obviously, as you mentioned, Will having a great day at his role protecting Drake May, I didn't get a chance to watch him against the Bills last week, as we said, but I'm pretty sold on where Drake May is as a young quarterback in this league after Sunday.
Man. Yeah, it's a lot of fun to watch him play. As much as I hate the Patriots and Boston sports, I need that to be put on record. It's nice to watch him play ball. But it's time for the best part of the week. Let's go to the high school top plays.
We've got some great ones. I guess, do I have to leave a second for whatever animals get put into the mix? Or
yeah.
Okay.
Oh, there's going to be a lizard this time.
Okay, sweet lizard. So this is a distinct North Louisiana flair to the plays of the week this week, and I wanted to start with one that I know will be near and dear to your heart. A game where West Monroe at home was down late and gets a big play here from a guy we're going to talk a little bit more about, a young man named Trez Davis, who's committed to Tulane, takes the quick screen, makes a couple guys miss, is gone 78 yards. And what you may notice is there's a cast on his right wrist, 2 weeks removed from wrist surgery. I know you're very cautious about your wrists.
I am.
You will face plant before risking a wrist injury. For Trez Davis, the Tulane commit, 2 weeks removed from surgery on that right wrist, ends up with 284 total offensive yards, 219 as a receiver, 3 touchdowns, really willing the Rebels back to victory against previously undefeated Alexandria.
Awesome.
Trez making the case for himself among the top receivers in the state this year with a gutsy performance all around, on top of just how talented he is. Moving west out to Evangel Christian, a familiar name, familiar face on here with Plays of the Week. Pop Houston, the 2027 Evangel Christian quarterback, committed to LSU, making guys miss, taking off for a huge run. I watched this video Saturday, made, I think I counted 4 Chris Berman noises in my head as he made guys miss on this play. There you go. And it's all part of a 49 unanswered points performance against Captain Shreve, a team that they split 2 tight games with last year in district and back in the playoffs. This year, they leave no doubt. They go on and win 71-25. They're still undefeated in District 1-5A play. And so if they keep handling their business, they're setting up a potential Week 10 date with Parkway for all the marbles, but still a long way to go before we get there. Great start to it all by Evangel Christian, though. Staying out in 1-5A and in the Shreveport area, a young man lined up in the backfield here at running back, Nathan Green. He's a commitment of Louisiana Tech. He kind of motions out, takes the little throw, and then has a throw of his own downfield to Jacorian Spencer, the sophomore. A big play right out of the gates for Huntington to help space out a nice win against C.E. Bird. C.E. Bird, a team that has traditionally been the top team in that district. It's been a rough year for them so far, but Huntington coach John Ray Simon and company getting a big win for that program.
Trick play, we love to see it.
With seeing some of the talent and speed and the execution of that play to make sure they get it off, no penalties, all those things. And then our one representative from South Louisiana, Easton Royal, 2027 wide receiver on the near side here, near that 50-yard marker for Brother Martin, going against Edna Carr. Edna Carr dominant once again. But how about this play from Easton, man? 2 guys. Wow. I'm going to go ahead and snag that thing with one hand and a shoulder pad deep downfield to give us a positive moment here for the Crusaders. He ends up on You Got Moss this weekend with the big play. And once again, just watch Easton getting a DB off balance.
Oh, my gosh.
Has some help coming over from the safety. Doesn't matter. He's that guy. And that Edna Carr secondary is loaded with commits to FBS programs this year. It's senior heavy. It's talented. They've got great young talent coming up along with them. I think, 21 there on the coverage at corner is one of those younger guys, but a senior safety coming over, and we're going to watch it one more time. Yeah, but Easton Royal is showing himself to be one of the top junior wide receivers, not only in the city and in the state, but in the country, someone that LSU badly wants in that 2027 class. And you can see why right there.
And now it is up to you to tell us which one of these plays is going to be the top play of the week. Go to the Instagram PODnas_LA. You can vote on one of these plays in the comment section or on the poll on there. We're going to announce the winner on our preview show at the end of the week. We do have a hard out, so I'm going to get out of here and do all the stuff. Do you have anything else before we say goodbye to the people?
I just forgot to shout out KNOE, Aaron Dietrich and company for the Trez Davis highlight, 318 Preps, Roy Lang and company up there in Shreveport for the Evangel Christian highlight, and then a couple of Huddle film highlights we got for the other guys. But thank you for that.
Yeah, awesome. Please subscribe, comment on the YouTube post. It helps us so much. And follow us on all the socials, LA versus all y'all on Twitter and on Instagram, PODnas_LA on Instagram. And you can go to the website, LouisianaVersusAllYall.com. Find a bunch of cool stuff there. That's all we got for you, Podnas.